The Audubon Aquarium. I'm Julie. I'm over here in the back. I'm one of the youth volunteers here, and I'll tell you a little bit about our penguins before we hand it off to the people inside. So we have two different types of penguins. We have our African black-footed penguins, which are the ones with like the black horseshoes on their stomach. And then we have our southern rockhoppers, which are the ones with the yellow eyebrows. So let's see what's on the menu today, David.
Good morning, everybody. Well, we have a few different kinds of fish we're going to eat today. First one is rainbow trout. Of course, these are probably a lot smaller than you're used to seeing, but we get these on purpose. We want them small. We wanted something to wean our juveniles like Humpty here off of formula with. So we wanted something tiny, and these rainbow trout, they're farm raised in Idaho, and they were the perfect size, so we got a bunch of those. We also have some, let's see if I can find a good one here. Pacific round herring, and this is almost identical to a version of herring that these African blackfoots get to eat in the wild, except it's only available to them once a year, and that's around late August, maybe early September, and only for about a week or so. So it's not something they get to eat all the time. However, here in the exhibit, we offer them this version year-round. And lastly, I have a fish called capelin. This is a cold water fish from the North Atlantic. Obviously, penguins don't eat this in the wild because penguins occur south of the equator, and this fish occurs north of the equator, so they never see each other. But this is a really good substitute for their main food source, which is a fish called the Cape anchovy. However, the Cape anchovy's been real popular with people as well as penguins, and it's been overfished to the point where it's considered depleted. And they actually they do census on the populations of these penguins every 10 years, just like they do for people. And when they got the results back from the 2010 census, they saw that their wild population numbers had dropped 70% in just one decade. And they were immediately put on the endangered species list. And most of that is because of the overfishing of their main diet. That Cape anchovy makes up 80% of their food source. So it's, when 80% of what you eat is disappearing, you're in a lot of trouble. And that's what's going on with these guys right now. There's a lot of people down there, good groups, trying to turn things around for them, but really, until that fish makes a comeback, could prove to be their end. Now, this is actually restaurant quality. I've seen this on some buffet lines. It's just working with it every day. I've been unable to try it myself. However, should you want to do it, it's perfectly safe to do so. It's also used in high quality fertilizers, as well as pet food and livestock food. If you look at ingredient labels and you see fish meal, it's generally going to be from this capelin. They just dry it out, grind it up into a flake, and then add it to whatever they want to put it in. Now, why do we feed 3 different kinds of fish? Well, a couple of reasons. One, we want a nice nutritional variety for these guys, and that helps when you have different kinds of fish you're feeding every day instead of the same thing over and over again. Also, we have some birds that like one thing over the other, just sort of like your kids at home. Some prefer macaroni and cheese, some like broccoli, some like ketchup. So we just want to make sure everybody's got a little something that they like. But also, if we ever had a problem getting in one particular kind of fish, if there was a shortage or something like that, we couldn't get any at a particular time, we wanted to make sure we still had other options for them, because these guys kind of are like kids. If you try and introduce something new to them, they're going to look at you like, what the heck? I'm not going to eat that. So we want to be sure we have a little bit of, a few different varieties to offer them, just in case something like that happens as well. Now, when we feed it here, we do what we call a monitor feed, and that's why Darwin's in here with me. He's got a clipboard with the names of all 35 penguins on it. And every time I give one a fish, Puddles, got a capelin, he'll put a mark next to their name. And the reason we do that is because penguins are birds, and they are prey animals, which means other things like to eat them. So they have the ability to mask symptoms when there's something wrong with them. And that's great in the wild, because they may be able to fool a predator into thinking there's nothing wrong with them. And that might give them enough time to overcome whatever illness they have or what have you. But eventually it's going to catch up to them. And they're predators like sharks and seals and killer whales. They want an easy meal. These guys are really fast, and they can turn on a dime. They're very hard to catch when they're in good shape. But those predators want the easy one. They want the bird that's sick and hanging back from the rest of the group, or maybe swimming a little slower than the rest of them, because that's going to be an easier catch, and they don't have to expend a lot of energy trying to catch something to eat. But here in the exhibit, we want to know when there's an issue right away, and the only way to tell that is through their appetite, because It's just sort of like when you have the flu, the last thing you want to do is eat. It's the same thing for these guys. When their appetite drops off significantly, we know we've probably got a health issue. We get our vet in here to come and check them out and make sure everything's okay. There's a couple of other reasons too. We keep that when they go into a molt, they shed all their feathers. Right before that happens, they start eating a lot. So if somebody's eating a lot, we know that we can, expect the molt soon and make sure they're getting enough fish to get them through it. Also, if they stop eating for just a period of a few days, it usually doesn't mean a whole lot. A lot of times it's just a female who's preparing to lay an egg, so we can keep an eye out for that too. So that list really comes in handy for those kinds of situations. We're going to go ahead and get started, but if you have any questions at all, our education staff is back there. We're wired together, so just relay your questions through them, and we'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Don't hesitate to interrupt the feed. We don't mind stopping. If you don't have one of those nagging penguin questions you've been wanting to know, it's probably a good time to ask it. So, but up until then, they're going to give you some more information about penguins and also our colony, and I'm going to get busy here because I'm getting a lap full of them. They're hungry today, or at least they look like they are. So, turning it back over to you guys.
Alright guys, so once again, I'm Julie, I'm a youth volunteer here, and once again I'll just kind of continue some stuff about penguins. So once again we have two different types of penguins. We have our African black-footed penguins, which are the ones they have black horseshoes on their stomachs, and we have our southern rockhoppers, which are the ones with the yellow eyebrows. You can actually see Dennis, he's on the right side. He's got like two bald patches by him. He's a rockhopper. And you can see he keeps going back and forth. He like hops on the rocks, so rockhopper. Yeah. And before they like especially the African black-footed ones, before they molt into their adulthood, they are kind of a charcoal color. So David, could you point out a juvenile?
Let's see, we have one more left that hasn't molted, and that's going to be Humpty here. She's the last holdout. But she's already starting to get a little large. Her feathers are looking a little rough around the back and around her haunches here. So pretty soon she's going to be going through her molt too, and then she'll have her adult feathers and look like all the other ones.
Okay, thank you, David. So what is molting? Molting is when a penguin, so what they'll do is every year they do an annual molt. And they actually, their first molt, they molt into their adulthood. So like the one he just showed you, they're like a charcoal-y color, and once they molt, they get their very distinct markings. And their markings are so distinct, it's kind of like your fingerprint. Your fingerprint is very personal to you. It's the same thing with penguins. So, and after they molt into their adulthood, they just kind of do an annual molt. Another really cool thing about penguins is that if you see them going through the water, they have little bubbles behind them. So, a really cool thing is they have this gland, and what they do is it produces a oil. And they'll rub their beak through it and they'll, like preen it through their feathers. And preening is when they just, kind of like put it through their feathers. And it makes kind of like a little wetsuit. So it's kind of cool. Their skin actually doesn't get wet. So, yeah.
I think one's
Our oldest penguin is Ernie. He is 33. And our youngest penguin is Dumpty. And he's 1.5 years old.
33-year-old penguin.
And the African black-footed penguins live to about 14 years in the wild. And the southern rockhoppers live about 10 years in the wild. Also, you might see the penguins have these little armbands. Some of them are red and some of them are blue. The red ones are the females and the blue ones are the males. There's actually no way to tell that a penguin is like a girl or a boy just off of like looking at it. So that's why we have them marked. And also you can see they all have names. So they're all named. It's kind of cool. You can read them. Some of them are really funny. Also, you can actually play with the penguins so they can't see outside of the exhibit. If you have shiny objects like keys or beads or something, and you get them like under the water. Sometimes they'll follow it, so it's really cute. You can try playing with them. We also have a BioFat cart back here. If you have any questions, you can come back here and ask us. But we also have some really cool things. We have some penguin skulls. You can see what that looks like. But once again, if you have any questions, you can come back here and ask us. And thank you for coming out to the Auburn Independent Reading. Enjoy your day.
That's got to be the first like a year
I
old
don't
male
know.
eyebrows.
It might have been that little boy that was up here.
Oh,
All right, I'm turning it off.